The snow had been falling for 2 days when Willa found the body. At first, she thought it was just another fallen tree, buried under the white blanket that covered everything for miles. But trees don't bleed. The red stain spreading slowly through the pristine snow made her stomach drop. She knelt down, brushing away the ice crystals from what she now saw was a face. Pale skin turning blue from cold, lips frozen, eyes shut tight. He wasn't breathing. Or maybe he was barely. She couldn't tell. Through her own shaking hands, the wind screamed through the pines, as if warning her to leave him, to save herself, to not get involved with an outsider who had no business being in her tribe's hunting grounds. Willa had been checking her trap line when the blizzard intensified into something monstrous. She should have turned back an hour ago. But hunger makes you stubborn, makes you push further than wisdom allows. Now she was 2 miles from her shelter with a stranger who might already be dead and a storm that would kill them both if she didn't move fast. She pressed too, fingers against his neck, searching for a pulse beneath skin that felt like frozen leather. There, faint, irregular, but there he was alive, barely. Her people would not approve of this. They had learned the hard way that outsiders brought trouble, broken promises, threats, violence disguised as friendship. Her father had forbidden contact with any who wandered into their territory, but leaving him here meant certain death, and Willa had already lost too much to death to let it win so easily again. She grabbed him under the arms and pulled. He was heavy, dead weight that barely moved through the deep snow. Her boots slipped. Her back screamed in protest. Her breath came in ragged gasps that burned her lungs in the frigid air. It took her 40 minutes to drag him half a mile. Her arms felt like they would tear from her shoulders. Sweat froze on her face. The wind picked up, turning the world into a white void where she could barely see 3 feet ahead. She fell twice, the second time landing hard enough to knock the air from her lungs. When she finally looked up, she couldn't see the mountains anymore, couldn't see the tree line, couldn't see anything but endless white in the dark. Shape of the man she refused to abandon. The shelter appeared through the storm like a miracle. A small structure built into the hillside, half buried and nearly invisible. It was a hunting shelter her people maintained for harsh weather, stocked with basic supplies. Willa hauled them up to the entrance, her hands so numb she could barely feel anything. Inside, the space was cold but protected from the wind. She kicked the entrance covering closed and collapsed beside him, gasping, shaking, suddenly aware of how close she had just come to dying herself. She needed to get him warm. Now his clothes were soaked through frozen in places. She pulled at the heavy coat, the wool shirt beneath it, revealing a chest covered in old scars. Some looked like blade marks, others like burns. A deep wound across his side still oozed blood. That's what had left the trail in the snow. Her hands moved automatically, reaching for the emergency supplies. Furs stored in sealed leather, dried moss for wounds, a fire starter kit. As she worked cutting away frozen fabric and pressing moss against the wound to stop the bleeding, she noticed his hands. They were calloused and scarred, marked with recent cuts and rope burns. A working man's hands, but also hands that knew how to fight. Around his neck was a leather cord with a small metal cross threaded onto it, a symbol her people had learned to distrust. The wind howled outside, shaking the shelter walls. Snow forced itself through cracks in the structure. Willa built up a fire in the central pit, hung wet clothes near it too, dry, and covered the stranger with every fur available. His breathing remained shallow and uneven. She had done everything she could. Now she could only wait and hope it was enough. But as she sat there in the firelight, watching this man who had appeared out of nowhere, a question burned in her mind stronger than the flames. What had brought him to her tribe's territory? And why did looking at his face, peaceful now, despite the pain he must be in, make her feel something she couldn't name? Outside, the blizzard raged on, burying the world in white. Inside, two people from different worlds shared warmth in the darkness, bound together by chance and a choice that would change everything. But Willa didn't know that yet. She didn't know that saving him would bring her own people to question her loyalty. She didn't know that his presence would force her to choose between the laws of her tribe and what her heart knew was right. All she knew was that she couldn't let him die. Not here. Not like this. He didn't wake for 2 days. Will kept the fire burning constantly, feeding it wood from the shelter's supply. Each hour he remained unconscious increased her worry, not just for his life, but for what would happen when her people discovered what she had done. She checked his wound every few hours, changing the moss. Pick fuses when they became soaked with blood and fluid. The gash across his side was deep, made by something sharp, a blade maybe, or the edge of sharp rock. It ran from just below his ribs down to his hip. Angry and inflamed, she cleaned it with melted snow and packed it with arrowroot her grandmother had taught her to use. The old woman's knowledge had to be enough. The fever came on the second night. His body burned so hot she could feel the heat radiating off him from a foot away. He thrashed in his sleep, mumbling words she recognized as the outsource language, but couldn't understand. She had to hold him down to keep him from tearing open the wound. His strength surprised her, even weakened and half-conscious. He was powerful. When his hand grabbed her wrist, his grip was like iron. She spoke to him quietly in her own tongue, words that had no meaning to him, but carried soothing tone, and slowly he settled. During those long hours of darkness, she studied his face. His features were sharp, a strong jaw covered in several days of beard growth, a straight nose, deep-set eyes beneath thick brows. His hair was dark brown, long enough to touch his shoulders, tangled and dirty from whatever ordeal had brought him here. She wondered what color his eyes would be when they opened. She wondered what kind of man he was. The kind her father warned about. Those who took land and broke treaties, or someone different. Someone who had simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time. The scars on his body told stories of a hard life, of survival and conflict. On the third morning, his eyes opened. They were blue, startlingly blue, like clear sky. After rain, he stared at the ceiling of the shelter, then at the fire, then finally at her. She was sitting nearby, sharpening her hunting knife with a smooth stone. When their eyes met, she saw him tense, his hand moving instinctively toward where a weapon might have been. "You're safe," she said in his language, words she had learned as a child before her father forbade such knowledge. "You were dying in the snow. I brought you here." Surprise flickered across his face, surprised that she spoke his tongue perhaps, or that she had chosen to help him at all. He didn't respond immediately, just watched her with those intense blue eyes, calculating, measuring. She could see him taking in the shelter, the traditional construction, the tribal designs painted on support beams, the absence of anyone else. "Where am I?" His voice was rough, cracked from days without water in the mountains. "My people's territory." She reached for a water skin and moved closer carefully. "Don't try to sit up. Your wound is deep." He accepted the water, drinking slowly while never taking his eyes off her. When he finished, he spoke again. "Why?" Just one word. But she understood what he was asking. Why save him? Why risk her own safety for someone who wasn't one of her people? Why care whether he lived or died? Will set the water skin down and met his eyes? Because watching someone die when you can help, that changes you into something you don't want to be. He studied her for a long moment, and she had the strange feeling he could see the truth behind her words, that she had watched people die before, that those deaths haunted her still. "My name is Natan," he said quietly. It was the first offering of trust. She felt the weight of it. "Willa," he nodded slowly. Then his eyes moved to the 3 parallel scars that marked her left cheekbone, the traditional marks of her people given to her when she had come of age. "You're risking a lot by helping me." It wasn't a question. He understood, somehow, that there would be consequences for this choice. "I know," she said simply, but she didn't say what she was thinking, that those consequences were already weighing on her, that every hour he remained here increased the chance of discovery, and that when her father found out what she had done, there would be a reckoning she couldn't avoid. Recovery came slowly. For days, Naten could barely move without pain shooting through his side. Willa helped him sit, up to drink broth she made from dried venison and wild roots. She changed his bandages morning and night, her hands steady and impersonal as she worked. He never complained, never made a sound, even when she knew it must have hurt. They didn't talk much at first. He seemed to sense that conversation carried risk, that too much familiarity would make what had to happen eventually, his leaving, more complicated. But she caught him watching her sometimes when she was tending the fire or preparing food or checking supplies. His gaze felt curious, trying to understand who she was beyond her actions. On the fifth day, he managed to stand. She steadied him as he took his first unsteady steps across the shelter floor. He was taller than most men she knew, and despite the wound and the weight he had lost, his frame was solid. When he looked down at her, something passed between them. A moment of awareness that made her release his arm and step back quickly. "You're healing well," she said, keeping her voice neutral. "Another week, and you'll be strong enough to travel." She saw his jaw tighten slightly. "And then you leave, go back to wherever you came from, and forget this place exists." "What about you?" "I go back to my people and hope they never learn what I did." He was quiet for a moment. "They would punish you for saving a life. They would see it as betrayal, as choosing an outsider over tribal law." She moved to Adwood, to the fire, needing something to do with her hands. "My father lost his brother to outsiders who promised peace and delivered violence. He's sworn that no one from beyond our lands will ever harm us again. I'm not here to harm anyone. I know that, but he won't care about my judgment. He'll only see that I broke his direct command." Naten moved carefully back to the furs, lowering himself down with obvious effort. "What brought you out alone during a blizzard? Doesn't your tribe hunt in groups?" She hesitated, then decided honesty couldn't make things worse than they already were. "I prefer hunting alone. Ever since my mother died 3 winters ago, I found it easier to be by myself. The other young women my age are preparing for marriage, learning the songs and ceremonies. I'm better with a bow and a knife. Your father allows this. He doesn't like it, but I bring back more meat than most of our hunters, so he tolerates it." She glanced at him. "What about you? What were you doing in these mountains alone?" His expression darkened. "Running from men who wanted me. Dead for something I didn't do." "What do they think you did?" "Killed a man during a dispute over land. Truth is, I tried to stop the conflict, but when a man died anyway, I was the easiest one to blame." He touched the wound on his side. "They caught up to me 2 days before the storm hit. I managed to escape, but not before this. I kept moving, trying to put distance between us until the blizzard forced me to find shelter. I must have collapsed before I reached it." "We'll process this," trying to determine if he was telling the truth. Her instinct said yes. There was no reason for him to lie to her, and the weariness in his voice carried the weight of genuine hardship. "The men who did this, will they still be looking for you?" "Probably not. The storm would have driven them back. And honestly, they likely think I'm dead by now." He met her eyes. "Which means if I'm smart, I'll stay dead, disappear somewhere far from here, and start fresh. That's a lonely way to live," says the woman who hunts alone and avoids her own people. The observation hit harder than it should have. She looked away into the fire. "I have my reasons." "So do I," he said, quietly. "But that doesn't make the loneliness easier." Silence stretched between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the silence of 2 people who recognized something familiar in each other. 2 people who had chosen isolation not as strength, but as protection against further pain. Outside, the wind had died down. The storm was finally passing, and Willa knew that meant their time together was running out faster than either of them was ready for. The days fell into a rhythm. Willa woke before dawn to tend the fire and check if the storm had truly passed. Natan grew stronger, helping where he could, splitting kindling with careful movements, melting snow for water, organizing supplies. They worked in comfortable silence. 2 People who had learned that words often said less than actions. But there were moments, small things that felt larger than they should. His hand steadying hers when she stumbled, bringing in firewood. The way he looked up when she entered the shelter, as if her presence mattered. The night she woke from a nightmare, gasping, and found him, sitting up across the room, concern clear on his face, even in the darkness. "You dream," he said quietly. Not a question. Sometimes, she pulled the fur blanket tighter around her shoulders. "Old things, things I try not to remember during the day." He was silent for a long moment. "I understand that kind of dreaming." She believed him. Whatever had put that wound across his side, whatever had driven him into these mountains, it had marked him in ways deeper than scars. 2 weeks after she found him, Naten walked outside for the first time. The cold hit him hard, but he stood there in the snow, breathing deep, his face turned up toward the pale winter sun. Willow watched from the entrance as he surveyed the landscape. The towering pines, the sharp peaks in the distance, the vast emptiness that was both beautiful and unforgiving. "It's beautiful," he said, "and dangerous. That's why my people chose it. Others won't follow where survival is this hard." He turned to look at her, running from something or protecting something. The question was too direct, too honest. She wanted to deflect it, but something about the way he stood there open without judgment made her answer truthfully. "Both. 2 generations ago, outsiders came with promises of trade and friendship. They took our best hunting grounds and left us with the high country. My grandfather's generation tried to fight back. They lost. So, my father's generation chose a different path. Complete separation. We stay in the mountains where others won't bother us, and we bother no one in return." Naten nodded slowly. "And you? Do you agree with that choice?" "I understand it. I respect it. But sometimes," she crossed her arms against the cold, "sometimes I wonder if hiding is the same as surviving. If isolation is strength or just another kind of defeat." "Sounds like you've been thinking about this for a while." "Since my mother died, she used to say that we couldn't let fear make us smaller than we were meant to be. My father says fear is wisdom, that remembering past pain prevents future harm." She met his eyes. "I don't know which one was right." Naten took a step toward her, then stopped. "Willa, when I leave here, and I will have to leave, what will you tell your people?" "Nothing. If I can help it. If they never know you. We're here, there's nothing to explain. But what if they find out? What if someone saw tracks or noticed you were gone too long during the storm?" The fear she had been pushing down rose up sharp and cold. "Then I'll face whatever comes. But I won't regret what I did. I won't regret choosing to help you." Something shifted in his expression. Gratitude, mixed with guilt. "I wish there was a way to make this right. To protect you from the consequences of your kindness. There isn't. This was always going to cost me something. I knew that when I dragged you out of the snow." She turned back, toward the shelter. "But some things are worth the cost." That evening, as they sat by the fire, eating roasted rabbit, Willa had trapped. Naten spoke again. "The wound is almost healed. Another week, maybe 2, and I'll be strong enough for the journey. I'll head west, find a settlement far from here where no one knows my face. Start over. Will you be safe there?" "Safer than I've been in a long time." He paused. "What about you? Will you be safe here?" "I don't know," she admitted. "My father has been watching me more carefully lately. I think he suspects I'm pulling away from the trib's ways. If he discovers I helped an outsider, it will confirm his worst fears about me. Then maybe you should leave too. Come west with me." The offer hung in the air between them. Willa felt her heart race at the possibility, leaving behind the weight of expectations, the constant tension between who she was and who her people wanted her to be. But she shook her head. "This is my home. These are my people, even when we disagree. I can't abandon them, even if staying means constant struggle." Naten studied her face for a long moment. "You're braver than you think. Staying and fighting for change takes more courage than running ever could." Before she could respond, a sound cut through the night. Distant but unmistakable voices calling her language. Growing closer, scouts from her tribe searching the area after the storm. and Willa realized with sudden clarity that their time together was about to end much sooner than either of them had anticipated. The voices drew closer. Willa moved quickly, gathering Natin's dried clothes and pressing them into his arms. You need to hide now. Where? She pointed to the back of the shelter where supplies were stored behind those bundles. Don't move. Don't. Make a sound. If they find you, we're both dead. He didn't argue, just moved as fast as his healing wound would allow. She watched him disappear behind stacked furs and provisions, then turned to compose herself, her heart hammered. As she stepped outside into the cold, 3 warriors emerged from the tree inn, men she had known since childhood. Her cousin Takakota led them, his expression stern beneath traditional paint markings. When he saw her, relief and anger flickered across his face. Willa, your father has been searching for 2 weeks. The storm. We thought you were dead. I took shelter here. I'm Fine. Takakota moved closer, his eyes scanning her, the area around the shelter, looking for signs of trouble. Alone all this time? Yes. The fire inside is large. For one person, her stomach tightened. I needed warmth. The storm was brutal. One of the other warriors circled the shelter, examining tracks in the snow. Most have been covered by recent snowfall, but not all. There are strange marks here, larger than yours. Dear, she said quickly. I've been hunting. Takakota's gaze sharpened. Show me your kills, then. She led them away from the shelter toward where she had actually set snares days ago. 2 rabbits hung frozen in the traps. Not enough to justify 2 weeks of absence, but something. The warriors exchanged glances. Your father wants you home, Takakota said finally. The tribe has been worried. Gather your things. Willa nodded, her mind racing. She couldn't leave Natin here with no supplies. No way to survive until he was strong enough to travel. But she couldn't refuse to return without raising more suspicion. Give me a moment to pack. She went back inside, aware that Takakota followed her to the entrance. She gathered her personal items slowly, moving near where Natin was hidden. As she reached for her hunting knife, she whispered in the outsourced language, barely audible. 3 days, I'll come back. If he heard or understood, he gave no sign. She finished packing and emerged. Takakota was watching her with an expression she couldn't read. Suspicion mixed with something else. Concern. Maybe. You've changed, he said quietly as they began the journey back. Ever since your mother died, you pull away from us more each season. I'm still here, still hunting, still providing for the tribe, but not present. Not really. He glanced at her. Your father worries you'll leave, that we'll lose you the way we lost her. The words hit harder than expected. I'm not my mother. No, you're stronger, and that's what worries him. They traveled in silence after that. Will's mind stayed back at the shelter, wondering if Natin would stay hidden, if he would understand that she couldn't risk returning immediately. 3 days felt like an eternity. When they reached the tribal village, her father was waiting. Chief Maka stood tall and unmoving, his face carved from stone. The 3 scars on his cheekbone, marks of leadership, seemed deeper than she remembered. Daughter, father, you were gone too long. You made dangerous choices during that storm. I survived barely. His eyes search her face, and you come back different, hiding something. Fear spiked through her, but she kept her expression neutral. I am tired. The storm took everything I had. He studied her for a long moment, and she had the terrible feeling he could see straight through to her secrets. But finally, he nodded. Rest. Tomorrow, we speak of your future. There are decisions that must be made. That night, Willa lay in her family's dwelling, unable to sleep. She thought about Natin alone in the shelter, rationing the supplies she had left behind. She thought about her father's words, decisions that must be made. She knew what he meant. He wanted her to choose a husband, to settle into the role her people expected of women, to stop challenging tradition with her independence. But all she could think about was blue eyes in the firelight. and the way a stranger had seen her more clearly in 2 weeks than her own people had in years. And she knew with a certainty that both terrified and freed her that something fundamental had shifted inside her. She couldn't go back to who she had been before the storm, before Natan. 3 days, she had promised 3 days until she could check on him, make sure he had survived her absence. 3 days to figure out how to protect both the life she had saved and the truth she could never reveal. 3 days that would determine everything. The 3 days were torture. Willow went through the motions of tribal life, helping prepare meals, mending clothes, participating in gatherings while her mind stayed in the mountains. Her father watched her constantly, his scrutiny, making every movement feel exposed. On the second evening, he called her to his dwelling. Inside, the fire cast long shadows across his weathered face. He gestured for her to sit. "You've been distracted since you returned. Your body is here, but your spirit is elsewhere." She chose her words carefully. "The storm reminded me how fragile life is. How quickly everything can change. Is that all?" His eyes were sharp. "Or did something happen during those weeks that you're not telling me?" Her pulse quickened. "What could have happened?" "I was alone, sheltering from the blizzard." Takakota said the shelter showed signs of sustained use. More fire than one person would need. More supplies consumed than you should have required. I was cautious. I didn't know how long the storm would last. He leaned forward. "Daughter, I have protected this tribe for 20 winters. I know when someone is hiding truth, and I know the look of someone whose loyalty has been tested." He paused. "Tell me now and face consequence with honor, or continue this deception and force my hand later when the truth inevitably surfaces." Willa felt trapped between impossible choices. Confession meant putting Natan in danger. Continued lying meant destroying what remained of her father's trust. Before she could decide, voices rose outside. Urgent, alarmed, they emerged to find warriors returning from patrol, supporting a wounded scout between them. Blood soaked through bandages on his leg. The tribe's healer rushed forward as they lowered him to the ground. "What happened?" Chief Maka demanded. "Outs," the wounded scout gasped. 5 of them, armed and searching the mountain territory. "They attacked when we challenged them. We drove them back. But they're still out there." Will's blood ran cold. Men searching the mountains. It had to be the ones hunting Natan, which meant they hadn't given up. Which meant if they found the shelter, her father was already organizing warriors, planning a defensive response. "We drive them from our lands permanently." "Show. Then what happens to those who trespass?" "Father, wait." The words escaped before Willa could stop them. He turned to her, eyes narrowing. "You have something to say about this?" She made a split-second decision. "The truth, or at least part of it. What if they're not here to threaten us? What if they're searching for someone? That makes them more dangerous, not less. It means they're determined or desperate." She stepped closer. "What if we learned why they're here before responding with force? What if there's a way to resolve this without violence?" Her father's expression hardened. "You sound like your mother. She always believed outsiders could be reasoned with, that there was common ground to find. That belief cost her life when she tried to negotiate peace with settlers who had no intention of honoring their words. The reminder of how her mother died, ambushed during a peaceful meeting, killed by men who saw her trust as weakness, hit like a physical blow. But Willa pressed on. "I'm not asking you to trust them. I'm asking you to understand their motives before we escalate something that could destroy both sides. Why do you care so much about outsiders you've never met?" "Because I know one," she thought. "Because I saved one. Because sending warriors after them means putting Natan in direct danger. Because I don't want more death," she said instead. "Because I'm tired of losing people." Chief Maka studied her for a long moment, and she saw the exact instant suspicion crystallized into certainty. "You know something. You've seen something. During that storm, you encountered these outsiders." It wasn't a question. Willa felt the weight of every eye on her. Tribal members gathering to hear this confrontation. Warriors waiting for their chief's command. Her cousin Takakota watching with an expression caught between loyalty and doubt. She could lie now, deny everything, and hope he couldn't prove his suspicions. Or she could tell a truth that would shatter her relationship with her father, but might save innocent lives. I found one of them, she said quietly, wounded, dying, in the snow. I gave him shelter until the storm passed. The shocked silence that followed felt like the air before lightning strikes. Then her father spoke, his voice cold and controlled. You saved an outsider. You broke tribal law. You betrayed everything our people stand for. I save a life. That's what our people used to stand for before fear made us forget. The words hung between them like a thrown blade. Chief Machias' face transformed from anger to something deeper. Pain, disappointment of father's heartbreak. Where is he now? Gone, she. Leet. He left as soon as he could travel. Then these men searching for him will find nothing and leave. And you? His voice cracked slightly. You will face council judgment for what you've done. Willa nodded, accepting the consequence. But inside, relief mixed with dread. Natan had 3 more days of safety. After that, she had no idea what would happen to either of them. The tribal council convened the next morning. Willa stood in the center of the gathering circle as elders and warriors formed ranks around her. Her father sat with the council, his face an unreadable mask. This was no longer father and daughter. This was chief and lawbreaker. The eldest councilwoman spoke first. Willa, daughter of Maka, you stand accused of violating our most sacred law. You gave aid to an outsider, bringing him into tribal territory, risking exposure of our location and ways. How do you answer? I saved a dying man. That's all I did. That's everything. Another elder said sharply. You chose an outsider over tribal security. You put one life above the safety of all. I put compassion above fear. Murmurs rippled through the gathered tribe. Some angry, some thoughtful. Willa saw divisions forming. Older members nodding in agreement with the council. Younger ones exchanging uncertain glances. Her father finally spoke. Did you consider even for a moment that this man might have been scouting our territory? That's saving him. Might have given enemies knowledge of our location. He was unconscious for days. He saw nothing but the inside of one shelter. And when he woke, when he was conscious and aware, Willa hesitated. He knew he was in tribal lands, but he also knew I was risking everything to help him. He wouldn't betray that. You trust the word of an outsider. I trust my judgment of character. Chief Maka stood, his voice carrying across the circle. Your mother said the same thing. She trusted outsiders who spoke of peace and trade. She trusted their promises, and they killed her for that trust. His voice broke slightly. I will not lose my daughter the same way. The pain in his words cut through Willa's defenses. I'm not asking you to trust outsiders. Father, I'm asking you to trust me. To believe that I can honor our people's safety while still holding on to the values you and mother both taught me. That all life has worth. That mercy is strength, not weakness. Mercy is a luxury we cannot afford. Then what are we protecting? If we lose our humanity in the name of safety, what's left worth defending? Silence fell. The question hung in the air, challenging everything the tribe had built their isolation upon. Finally, Takakoda stepped forward from the warrior ranks. Uncle, may I speak? Chief Maka nodded stiffly. Yvette watched Willa for years. She's the best hunter we have. She provides more for this tribe than any 2 warriors combined. She's never put us at risk before. He paused. Maybe this one act of compassion doesn't erase years of loyalty. Another voice joined in, one of the younger women. My son was sick last winter. Willa sat with him for 3 nights, using her knowledge of healing to bring down his fever. She saved his life. Does that count for nothing? More voices rose. People sharing moments when Willa had helped them, protected them, proven her dedication to the tribe. Not everyone. Plenty remained silent or hostile, but enough to show she wasn't friendless. Chief Maka raised his hand for silence. The question is not whether Willa has served this tribe. The question is whether that service grants her the right to break our most fundamental law. What would you have me do? Willa asked quietly. If you found someone dying, would you walk past? Would you let them perish to preserve a law? Or would you save them and deal with consequences? After her father met her eyes, and for the first time since her return, she saw conflict there. The struggle between the chief who had to enforce laws and the father who had raised her to value life. Before he could answer, a commotion arose at the edge of the village. Warriors shouted warnings, and then impossibly a figure emerged from the forest. Natan walked into the village clearing, hands raised in peace, his blue eyes scanning the crowd until they found Willa. He was pale, obviously weak, but standing on his own. Behind him, at a careful distance, stood 5 men, the ones who had been hunting him. Don't hurt them, Natan called out in the tribal language, his accent heavy but understandable. I'm surrendering myself. They have no quarrel with your people. Let them take me and leave in peace. Chief Maka's hand went to his weapon. Warriors surrounded the outsiders immediately, but Natan kept his focus on Willa's father. I know what she risked to save me. I know what's cost her. I'm here to make sure that cost doesn't get worse. He took a step forward despite the weapons now pointed at him. She told me about your laws, about why your people don't trust outsiders. She told me about her mother, and she's right. You have every reason to hate men like me. Then why come here? Chief Maka demanded. Because she's being punished for showing mercy, and I won't let her stand alone for a choice that saved my life. Natan's voice grew stronger. These men behind me, they've been hunting me for a crime I didn't commit. But I'm done running. I'm done hiding. I'll face them if that's what it takes to clear her name. One of the men behind him stepped forward. We don't want conflict with your people. We're taking him back to face justice. That's all. Justice, Natan said bitterly. You mean revenge for something I didn't do? A man is dead. Someone has to answer for it. Willa found her voice. What proof do you have? It was him. The man hesitated. He was there. He was part of the dispute. That's not proof. That's convenience. Chief Makia looked between the outsiders, his daughter, and the warriors awaiting his command. A decision had to be made. One that would define not just this moment, but what kind of people they chose to be. Chief Maka stood silent for a long moment, the weight of leadership heavy on his shoulders. Finally, he spoke. Tell me what happened. The truth from the beginning. Natan straightened despite his obvious pain. 3 months ago, there was a dispute over land near a settlement. I was working as a mediator, trying to help 2 families reach agreement. Things got heated. One man drew a weapon. I stepped between them, tried to prevent violence. In the struggle, the weapon discharged. A man died. He paused. These men decided I was responsible. Easier to blame the outsider than admit their own people. We're at fault. You have no proof of this story. No, I have only my word, which I know means nothing to you. Wait. One of the pursuing men stepped forward, his expression troubled. Cal, this isn't right. We all saw what happened that day. The weapon was drawn by Marcus, not him. He was trying to stop it. The leader, Cal, turned on him. You're backing out now. After we've come this far, I'm backing truth. This stopped being about justice weeks ago. It became about pride. The man looked at Chief Maka. He's telling the truth. We blamed him because it was easier than admitting we lost control of our own people. Cal's face reamed with anger, but 2 of the other men were nodding in agreement. The story was falling apart under the weight of truth finally spoken aloud. Chief, Maka turned to Willa. And you knew none of this when you saved him? No, I just knew he was dying. That was enough. Her father studied her, and she saw something shift in his expression. Not approval exactly, but understanding, perhaps even a grudging respect. My daughter acted without knowing if this man was innocent or guilty. She simply saw someone who needed help and provided it. He addressed the gathered tribe. This is not weakness. This is the courage to act according to conscience rather than fear. It's what my wife would have done, what she died defending. The belief that we could maintain our values even while protecting our people. He turned back to the outsiders. You will leave our territory now. All of you, Cal, you will return to your settlement and admit the truth of what happened. The others will witness that you have done so. And you, he looked at Naten, you are free. The debt you owed my daughter for saving your life is paid by the courage you showed coming here. Uncle Takakoda, step forward. Is this wise letting outsiders walk away with knowledge of our location? They already know we're here. What they don't know is whether we're people to fear or people to respect. Chief Maka's voice carried across the circle. Today, we show them we're both strong enough to defend ourselves, but also strong enough to choose mercy when it's warranted. Cal started to protest, but his companions were already backing away, clearly, wanting no more conflict. With a final angry glare at Naten, he turned and led the others back into the forest. The tribe watched them go in silence. Then Chief Maka turned to face his daughter. You broke our law. You risked our safety, and you did it for the right reasons. He placed his hand on her shoulder, the gesture both forgiveness and acknowledgement. Perhaps our laws need to allow for wisdom as well as protection. Perhaps hiding from the world has made us rigid when we need to stay flexible. Relief and gratitude flooded through Willa. Thank you, Father. Don't thank me yet. You've created consequences we'll all have to live with. Those men know we're here. Now, others may come. Some friendly, some hostile. We'll have to be more vigilant, more prepared. He looked at Natan, and you formed a connection with an outsider that won't be easy to navigate. Natan stepped forward. Carefully. I have no intention of causing problems for your people. I'll leave. Find a new place to start over. Far from here. Or Takakoda said, surprising everyone. You stay. Work. With us. Show us that not all outsiders are threats. Help us learn to interact with the outside world without losing who we are. Chief Makia looked at his nephew, then at his daughter, seeing the hope in her eyes. He sighed. The world is changing whether we want it to or not. Maybe it's time we changed with it. He addressed Natan directly. If you stay, you follow our laws. You respect our ways, and you prove through your actions that my daughter's faith in you is justified. I will. I swear it. The chief nodded slowly. Then you may remain, but know this. You harm any of my people, betray our trust in any way, and no mercy will be shown. Understood? Understood? As the tribal gathering dispersed, people returning to their tasks with much to discuss, Willa found herself standing with Natan at the edge of the village. The spring sun was warm on her face, and for the first time in years, she felt something like peace. You came back, she said quietly, even knowing what it could cost. I couldn't let you face the consequences alone, not after what you did for me. You could have died. My father could have killed you on sight. Some things are worth the risk. He met her eyes. You taught me that when you pulled me from the snow, when you chose compassion over safety, you taught me that running from consequences isn't the same as being free. Willa looked out at her village, at her people moving through their daily lives, at her father speaking with a council about new policies they would need. Everything had changed, and yet somehow everything felt more right than it had in years. What happens now? Natan asked. Now we figure out how to build something new, how to honor the past while creating a different future. She glanced at him. Together, I think if you're willing, he smiled, the first real smile she had seen from him. I'm willing. As they stood there, tribe girl and stranger no longer, but two people who had found in each other the courage to choose hope over fear. Willa understood that saving him in the blizzard had been the beginning of saving herself. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is extend a hand across the divide. And sometimes that single act of mercy changes everything. If you enjoyed this story, click the video on your screen now to watch another unforgettable tale from the frontier, where courage and destiny meet in the most unexpected ways. Don't forget to subscribe and consider a super chat too. Help us keep bringing you more stories like these. Your support means everything to us.